Hi everybody, Tim Kelly here for Master Photo Techniques. Today I have a short little lesson on something that many of you may not really realize. And that is, in all the years that I've been doing this, I have had quite a few images returned to me for replacement because of ultraviolet exposure. Now, ultraviolet light is everywhere. More intense, of course, if direct sun hits your photographs. More cumulative and slower if it's reflected ultraviolet. That's possible as well. But I do have some that are really intensified. If your client, my client, lived on a waterfront or a lakeside, and that sunlight came daily bouncing off of their water in front and just magnifies the intensity of that ultraviolet light. Many of you have seen situations where fabric, furniture, drapes have lost their color. They've been bleached out by the sun. Well, guess what? That happens to photographs as well. Recently, very recently, began replacing a large collection of images and didn't know until I went to their home to deliver the new ones where they were getting so destroyed in a front room that had big windows facing the waterfront. And we're going to take a look at that collection. I'll show you what we had to do to restore it. And I just want you to be careful to warn your clients that no matter how good a guarantee products have in these times regarding the different canvases and metal and fiber prints, all that, any can be damaged by excessive ultraviolet. So storage and placement out of direct light is super important. Because it's so important for you to know and for you to warn your clients, and if you're just a photo hobbyist and you're making prints, you want to keep them away from direct light. This particular example is one that actually made me want to do this little episode, is because I'm always doing these restorations of older images. Fortunately, I have the films from like all the way back into the 80s, late 80s at least, so I can find the negatives, and I'll show you exactly the process that I have to go through. But this particular photo for this client was obviously needing a restoration or replacement because you really can't fix the image once it's gone. This one was only in a foyer with modest sunlight in it. But over 15 years, it was degraded. So it was right in the front of the house. Did get sunlight, but not a whole lot. But over 15 years, the cumulative effect, there it is. So on the right, we have the one that was the original, made in the early 90s. And then we have the newer one that was done just a couple years ago. Here's another current one. On the left, we're looking at my new scan of the film from my archive. This was in presenting it to the client. The client sent me the snapshot of their image on the wall. The blue one over there is the client copy. And I went back, got my film, scanned it, sent them a little proof, said, this is what I can do. And then this is very close to the final delivered replacement, which of course tons better than the one there on the right. So what you're doing is either, if you have digital, of course, you can go to that digital file, test it, correct it, replace it. Film, we have to scan it. Here's another one. This is obviously a canvas with some paint on it. And whether that made it any better or worse, I don't know. But as you can tell, once again, that ultraviolet blue coming through where there used to be beautiful warm tones. And this is a large 24 by 30 canvas. And I had to make a new one going back to the negative. So there's the restored image. But this is what can happen if the images get too much sun. It's not just can only happen to a few people. It can happen to anybody. And it happens so gradually over time that they often don't even notice what's happening until many years go by and they realize it doesn't have the fidelity it should. And of course, I don't want, and you shouldn't want, your clients to have on the wall large pieces of photographic art that have faded half away. So here's some of that were found on the lakefront house. These before images were actually supplied to me by my client, so they're not corrected, they're not anything. I don't know how far off they are, but once seeing them, I knew that they had faded, and I didn't know the circumstance until I visited their home. There is the proper image and the replacement that I put back in that frame for them. This is all from the same family. This is what it should look like. And this one was starting. You can look in the shadows and see the bluing in there. Okay, this is the proper flesh tone. This was a panel of 3 sisters. And then these were redone for them. And now they have the proper density again and some of the color they needed. Getting back to some of their oldest ones, they'd been around for at least 15 years, getting hammered by sunlight. And this is what it should have looked like and now looks like once again. Okay? That was really gone, really, really gone. And these were beautifully printed originals. Back in the day, we had the Kodak Warranty, which was promise of excellence, and that ran from the 80s and 90s to early 2000s, and that meant Kodak would pay to have these replaced. And we kind of stood on that for a long time, but guess what? That's gone and that warranty's gone, so we have to eat it ourselves. Here's another yet older one. It's like 92 or 94, I don't know, something like that. It might not be that old. Here's the new one, redone. It's just like remastering an old record, you know. If it's scratchy and popping and whatever, you can get a new copy. Costs money though. And here's what I do with my clients and have done for over 30 years. Because I never really felt like anybody else's warranty would work to underwrite my costs, I made my warranty include a discount of 65% off the current price. So for me to redo this image for this client, if this was a 1620 canvas and it cost $1,200, they can now buy it for 65% off, 35% of the original price, you know, which might be, I don't know, $450 or something. Either way, I'm going to get my costs covered, yet they get an extreme discount on it, okay? So it's funny, this image, when I scanned it, I saw this whole image, which I really think is adorable, but this was the one that was framed. We pulled the one child out, but I really, for myself, wish it was inclusive of the whole storyline. So that's my children's photography setup, and we just, you know, get what we can get and crop what we got to crop, and that's what it is. But I do love it. I do love it. Now, technically, I'm scanning my films myself. We used to do it in a very high-end professional way from a big facility that did Kodak Pro CD scans on gold, and they cost like $35 per scan. That was in the early days of scanning negatives for digitizing. Of course, now we do our own, and I've been using this particular scanner, and I've always had scanners and film scanners. This is just like a consumer professional version. The V750 came out later than the V800, but this one works great. On it, I can do films up to 8 by 10 inches, and they look fantastic. It comes with all these film holders. This is my 2 1/4 film holders, and then I get my scans. Here is what it looks like to me when I pull films from a 15-year-old file, and it has all my notes grease penciled on the file page, what they got, what the image number was, the reference number. It actually has some printing information on there too, but it's really easy for me to find my negatives. identify them, put them in the scanner, and then create a new, ready to retouch and ready to print once again. So with the ability to go back to your film, or in this case a digital file, and remake this print for the client is really rewarding indeed, rather than having a faded out image. Or to be able to recreate this group from 15, 20 years ago. Kids are all grown, probably have their own kids. And that blue one on the right was hanging on their wall. We can't do that. Give heed to the fact that images can fade and will fade unless they're put in a black envelope in a drawer. They're going to get some kind of exposure, so you want to be very careful. We used to use UV protecting sprays or lacquer sprays that was supposed to inhibit that. I don't know if it ever did. And of course, new inkjet sciences say that the images will last a long time, but that doesn't mean it's impervious to some kind of damage, you know. So be prepared to replace images as needed. It's good for your reputation if you don't allow faded images to be on a client's wall. And again, when I found this particular home, the most recent one that did the several replacements, I saw so many more. They have like 3 or 4 or more portraits that have been exposed to the sun, have lost their color and turned violet, blue, and this one's not too bad, it's more recent, but it's been exposed to sunlight, and unless they move it, it's going to fade just like all the other ones. So there are more to do, and I don't want that image in their home. So we're looking to get another batch together to redo for them. They will get it at a great discount, but I still will not lose money doing the reproduction of new copies for their home. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, this little warning on what can happen in the environment to your images. We find it to be very important to us to make sure our clients are happy even 10 and 20 years down the road with our images. So that's why it's very, very important to us. But beware that the display position of your images is extremely important to their longevity. So go ahead and warn your clients and know it for yourself. And have a great day, and thank you, my friends, for subscribing and staying with us on Tim Kelly's Master Photo Techniques.